Welcome to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. Established in 2016, the Fintech Times is a global multimedia news outlet centered around the world's first leading fintech newspaper. We report on the latest and brightest ideas from the fintech world. Follow the conversation using hashtag TFD News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times.
Hello and welcome back to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast, brought to you by Vanta. Vanta helps you save time, money, and build customer trust, all by centralizing program requirements and evidence collections for frameworks like Dora. If you want to manage risk and improve security, then head to vanta.com/Fintech Times to learn more. And with that, me and Francis are back once again with another episode after what has been a very, very busy week. Some of the Fintech Times team has been busy at Pay360 in London, but Francis, you've been holding the fort down, keeping the website running. How's the week been for you?
Yeah, it's been, I want to say busy, but probably not as busy as yours. So I'm sure you'll share the experiences of Pay360. But no, it's been good, and it's been we've had a lot of interesting news come across our desk as always. But it's been, normally I'd say we usually get a lot of European news and sort of like news from the UK. But I feel like this week it's actually been sort of more North America focused. I feel like that's really been the region where a lot of announcements have been made this week. So it's just an interesting to see, not necessarily why that's happening, but just the fact that it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that I'd seen when we got back from the event, just seeing that, there was a lot more North, or not only North, but South America based news being announced this week, which, like, as you say, we generally, potentially just because we're based in London, we get a lot more UK based news being sent to us. But yeah, it has been a very busy week for not just the North and South America, but also Asia and in the Middle East. And with that, what news article are you going to be talking about today?
So today I wanted to talk about the topic of lending. And although I did just say that the UK has been less busy this week, this is about the UK lending sector and looking at some findings from Credit Spring.
Fantastic. Well, luckily mine is not from the UK. In fact, I'm going to be talking about the launch of the very first instant payment system in Somalia. But yours sounds very interesting. So why don't you kick us off this week?
Sure. So when the news came across our desks, I was quite shocked actually to see the stats. Credit Spring found that 2 million UK adults have borrowed from illegal lenders in the last 12 months. And it really spotlighted that families seem to be the ones that are looking towards illegal lenders the most. In fact, it found that 9% of parents with children under 18 have had no other choice but to turn to illegal lenders. And this is double the UK average of 4%, prompting concerns over the long-term financial stability of many families. The research also reveals that almost 4 million parents say they will need to borrow to survive the next 6 months ahead of the expensive Easter holidays. Furthermore, it found that a third of parents were reliant on borrowing from friends and family in the past year, which is higher than the UK average of 21%, and 28% borrowed from their bank compared to 16% of all UK adults. So again, it seems that families are really turning to whatever options that they really can to get funds to sort of help them through right now. 1 in 5 parents also say that they won't be able to afford Easter trips with their children this year, as the cost of days out and holidays has soared once schools close. Obviously, families are one of the sort of a big focus of this research, but Credit Spring also did look more generally at the lending space in the UK and found that 15% or 7.6 million people in the UK will need to borrow to get by in the next 6 months. And this has caused Credit Spring to call for more affordable borrowing options. And this is what I wanted to get your thoughts on. And it's on the UK's lending scene and sort of the discussions that are being had right now. Credit Spring found that its tool has helped families gain access to just under £1,000 extra a month, which is a huge amount, especially if you're just trying to get by. And if more fintechs offered solutions like this and outwardly sort of promoted them and worked on breaking down the stigma that, you can't seek or you shouldn't seek help to deal with debt, could more families, if they were encouraged and sort of supported in this process, do you think that stigma sort of could be broken down? Well, using fintechs.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's the report that you've mentioned there goes to show just how much of an issue certainly illegal lenders is in the UK. And I think there's such an opportunity that Credit Spring are really trying to ensure gets out to people, through its benefits finder, helping people identify benefits they're going to be eligible for. The fact that it's located 1.9 billion pounds in additional financial support since the end of 2023 is like an ridiculous number to look at and think that's a huge amount of support that has helped offer. And realistically, this isn't something that's reached the masses. The majority of people probably still unaware that options like this exist. And I think that focus on trying to break down the stigma that prevent people from seeking debt advice is such a big issue. And yet these kind of initiatives are really trying to help break down those stigmas. And there's a real opportunity that we've spoken about for a long time, that fintechs have to make a change that potentially the incumbent banks aren't able to, just given their sort of position and people's opinions of them. And fintechs are finding ways to change the game in many ways and enable people to access, not only to understand the amount of options they have in the space in terms of the support they can access, the types of benefits they can access that they aren't already, but really just showing them actually it's okay to seek support from these options. And yeah, I think it's a as you'd expect, it's something that you would really think is going to help people in the future. And all we can really hope for is that these types of solutions do get out to more people, because the more people that they get out to support, the bigger change and impact it's going to have. And we could see that 1.9 billion number soar in the next year or so if that awareness increases. So yeah, unsurprisingly, I think it's a really, really great initiative, and I think that they're doing really good things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like you say, the figure of sort of 1.9 billion pounds is just insane to think about. And I think I don't want to say lunacy of it, because it's not, but it just seems like this ludicrous amount of money that people aren't aware is available to them. And I think because obviously when you're worried about being able to meet payment obligations or meeting your financial responsibilities, and you need to turn to a lender in the first place, I feel like for most people that would be quite something that they're embarrassed about, and they don't want it to be known. And because of that, they sort of try to go in less official avenues because they don't want to admit that they're struggling. And in a way, I think going through an illegal lender almost justifies that, or can justify in someone's head that, because this isn't an official thing, I'm not officially, broke right now. And I do still have some money. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like going sort of down the illegal avenue sort of just makes it almost more justifiable in a really weird way. And that's obviously wrong, and that's not the way it should be. So I think, yeah, like you said, the more these fintechs sort of really promote these initiatives, hopefully the more likely families who are struggling will sort of go to them and be able to sort of reap the benefits, I suppose, of these solutions. But yeah, again, time will tell. But I think this is definitely something that we will continue to see, and especially in Credit Spring's instance, that because it is an FCA regulated credit subscription service, I think the official nature of it, once people start to realize the benefits of it, and I mean, obviously we have seen 1.9 billion, and that it's just under £1,000 a month that is potentially available, the sort of the official avenue of it all. And I think that really will help families feel like this isn't going to be a debt spiral that I'm going to be stuck in for the rest of my life, and that it is just a short means to an end for a temporary dip in a financial situation, I suppose. But yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great solution. But with that, why don't we go over to your article?
Absolutely. As I said at the beginning of the podcast, the Somali financial ecosystem has taken its next step in the digital world as the Central Bank of Somalia payment initiative, the Somalia Payment Switch, has successfully launched the country's first instant payment system. Now, this launch comes with support provided by Paytech's BPC's Smart Vista platform, which meets both local and international regulatory standards. And it comes as a significant portion of the population in Somalia remains underserved or completely underbanked in some instances, despite Somalia's financial ecosystem seeing a lot of growth in recent years. And as a result of this, the demand for secure, fast, and modern payment solutions has become more and more pressing as time's gone along. Now, essentially, this newly deployed infrastructure enables Somalia Payment Switch to process transactions in real time, 24/7, 365 days a year. And additionally, the integrated settlement and liquidity management solutions overseen by the central bank as the clearing and settlement agent provide real time net position updates and multiple settlement cycles, while a national QR payment standard, now known as SOMQR, enables contactless transactions with a simple scan. Basically, with this system now operational, Somali consumers can initiate instant transfers from their mobile or banking app and make QR-based payments by entering the recipient's details and authenticating transactions securely with a PIN or one-time password. Now, since the launch, 7 banks have already connected to the new Insta payment system, with 6 more banks and major mobile money operators are expected to join later this year. Now, the reason I chose this article is because I really wanted to get your take on the impact that this kind of instant payment system can have. And obviously, you are our resident LATAM correspondent, so you know all about the benefits specifically that the Pix instant payment system has had in Brazil. And I really just wanted to kind of get your take on the kind of benefits that Pix offers and the kind of benefits that Somalis can expect locally with the launch of this new system.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the big things that we've seen with Pix is that it has been sort of an entire country sort of uniting as one and sort of onboarding the idea of Pix and taking it and sort of running with it. And I mean, we've seen that, I believe at launch, it was around 38 financial institutions were required to join, but then more than 700 other banks and financial institutions chose to join the Pix payment system at launch. And I think when you see so many organizations sort of unite and put the consumer at the heart, and I think when you have all these payment avenues lining up, making payments easy, I think that's really sort of the best way to create an instant payment solution, because everyone's connected and it's made simple and accessible either through a QR code or, like it says here, that it's you can make a secure payment with a PIN or a one-time password. And I think it's interesting to see that at launch, 7 banks connected to the Somalia instant payment system, and 6 more banks and major mobile money operators are expected to join later this year. I think this is really what will catalyze the adoption of the new payment system, and we'll really see it succeed and, have widespread adoption across the country. Because as you mentioned, the ecosystem is doing well right now and has been growing. And I think this will really help catalyze that growth and take it to the next level. And this isn't something necessarily that's completely revolutionary. I mean, we've seen the adoption of QR codes, and we've seen the adoption of these instant payment methods across the world. But I think when everyone sort of gets on board and looks to connect each other to help make life better for consumers, I think ultimately this helps the merchant, the consumer, and anyone really in the payment cycle. Everyone really benefits. And that is sort of, I mean, in our previous article, we were sort of talking about like a debt spiral or a debt sort of cycle that you can get in. This is the complete opposite. It's like a transparency cycle, I suppose, or like a seamless spiral where everything just works so seamlessly that it's very difficult. Of course, I mean, if there's an outage or of some sorts, then that does, put a spanner in the works a little bit. But I think for the most part, I think when we see everyone sort of accept and onboard new payment infrastructure and say, look, we're going to include this to make life better for our consumers and in turn the population, I think that's really the big stepping stone to a better digital sort of payment ecosystem in a country. And I mean, as you say, like Brazil is the perfect example of this. I mean, Pix's adoption has been just, I don't even have the words to describe it. It's been insane. And I mean, obviously it's been around for a while now, but it's crazy. And I think we're seeing countries across the world looking to Brazil as the, I don't necessarily want to say the guinea pig, but the ones that everyone wants to aspire to be like. They were sort of not necessarily the first ones to introduce instant payment systems, but the first ones to really do it correctly and see widespread adoption, I'd say. So yeah, it's not a surprise to me to see that the Somali fintech ecosystem, or financial ecosystem, I should say, is looking to adopt something similar. Again, Brazil didn't invent instant payments, but their success has really been something that other countries are trying to replicate. And I think, like I mentioned, the more financial institutions that buy in to the instant payment system, that's what we'll see it grow and succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've made some great points. And the most important one, as you said, was that level of collaboration and all these different institutions buying in to ensure the success of it. And hopefully that's something that they're going to see in Somalia to bolster the success of it. I mean, when I was preparing for the podcast and looking at sort of different instant payment systems globally, obviously one of the other huge ones is UPI in India. And just reading up on the kind of impact that it's had on people's day-to-day lives, it's been hugely successful. And even that in India has been really beneficial for fintechs in the area. And it also has meant that consumers, regardless of what their needs, they've been able to access a more integrated and efficient digital services. And it basically means that even if they're in rural areas, a rural farmer in India can now have his identity confirmed and his monthly subsidy transferred into his account almost instantly without having to wait in lengthy queues. While a student in a more built up part of India can still have a loan application approved in minutes. And I think that just goes to show the impact that these instant payment systems can actually have globally, and if done correctly. Obviously we have seen some launched in different parts of the world that haven't been quite successful, mainly due to the fact that they haven't had that adoption. But yeah, I think if done right, as you said, they can have hugely beneficial impacts on countries. And I think that's maybe what Somalia can expect if it really goes all in and different institutions buy into it, as you said. But yeah, I think as we always say, it'll be interesting to see how it develops over time. And I'm sure we'll be coming back at some point to talk about its either success or failure. But with that, why don't we move on to our final segment of the show, which is what I learned this week. So as you know, each week so much news and insights cross our desks, and we like to share a little something extra with our listeners. So Francis, what is it that you've learned this week?
So this week I learned that the digital financial solution provider AstroPay has launched its global multi-currency wallet across Latin America with an expanded presence in Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and Chile, which I thought was quite interesting.
Fantastic. And I actually am going to be looking at another launch because Standard Chartered has launched its SC-GPT, which is a generative AI tool across 41 markets worldwide. And it basically hopes to empower over 70,000 employees worldwide in a move to improve the bank's operations productivity while tailoring sales and marketing efforts to increase revenue. And I just thought that's just another example of, a big financial institution like Standard Chartered really going full in on AI and recognizing the impact it could have. And I think we're going to see more and more of these launches throughout the rest of the year, basically, and probably beyond. But with that, Francis, thank you very much for joining me again this week. And hopefully we'll have the whole team back in the next episode.
Look forward to the conversation next week. Yeah, see you then.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Fintech Times News and Views podcast. Don't miss next week's episode and continue the conversation using #TFT News and Views and follow us at the Fintech Times.